Dr. Nasser had published over 60 technical papers, and he has authored 2 books. It's quite overwhelming even reading the bio of Dr. Nasser, but it is what it is. It's quite overwhelming and humbling as well. Excuse me. Miss Afilal, the infamous Miss Afilal, Her Excellency, a Moroccan national and the former minister in charge of water in the government of Morocco between 2013 and 2018, and is currently an expert in water and climate change. Ms. Afilal, Her Excellency, began her journey as an engineer in the Moroccan Potable Water Office, where she contributed to the achievement and completion of several undertakings of nationwide importance. As a minister, Her Excellency implemented important reforms and made landmark achievements that ensured water security in a difficult climate environment. These included the elaboration of the Moroccan Water Resources Policy between 2015 and 2030, development and implementation of the drought management plan, establishment of new modes of groundwater governance, and development of reuse plans, and these are among a million other important initiatives. She also played an important role in the recognition of water as the most affected sector by climate change, which culminated into the organization of Water Action Day, CCNUCC. Her Excellency graduated in 1997 from the Muhammadiyah School of Engineers. Of course, it's an infamous school, the most prestigious engineering school in Morocco, and has been investing her time, energy, and effort in the sector for over 2 decades now. Last yet not least, Ms. Nonay, Ms. Carmen Nonay, is an experienced leader in international development with over 20 years of experience with the World Bank Group, which includes the World Bank, IFC, and MIGA, ranging from private sector investments to policy reforms or building the capacity to help developing nations to achieve the SDGs. In her current capacity, she manages the World Bank water sector portfolio in MENA, which exceeds 3.5 billion US in monetary terms. Prior to that, she was the manager of the Global Partnership and Resource Mobilization Unit in the Social Urban Rural Resilience Global Practice, where she managed over 2 billion of trust funds as well as key partnerships. Ms. Nonay has also worked at IFC and MIGA, is fully familiar with the whole range of World Bank Group instruments for public and private sector, infrastructure, financial and social sectors. At IFC, she led complex financial undertakings in Latin America, while at MIGA, she led more than 1 billion of guarantees in projects in energy in the several sectors, energy, finance, oil and gas, and mining. Prior to joining the World Bank Group, she worked on project finance and trading company of Nippon Steel in both the US and Japan. Ms. Nonay obtained her MBA from Thunderland School of Global Management, a Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration from the University of Texas, and she also is in possession of 2 bachelor degrees in sociology and political science from her home country, Spain. Dear panelists, welcome to this session, and thank you so very much for joining us. Before we start, I would like to extend our gratitude and sincere thanks to ACWA, His Excellency Mr. Khaldoun Khashman, for inviting us to this important session. We would also, and we take the opportunity to thank His Royal Highness Prince Hassan bin Talal for hosting this very important event. Without further ado, our session today is about sustainability in water and sanitation, which is a very broad topic, and it actually encompasses everything underneath the sun for this important sector. Let me first start by quoting a verse from Quran al-Kareem, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً بِقَدَرٍ وَمَا أَنْتُمْ لَهُ بِخَازِنِينَ. I have never ever been able to count how many times was water quoted in the Quran, and I'm sure in the Bible and in all of the holy books. I have no doubt. It's a matter of being or not being. It's a matter of life and death. This is what it is. And this was emphasized by all member states of the UN Security Councils when they drew this infamous diagram with all of the 16 SDGs and water being at the heart, at the center. There is no way on earth any nation, any of us, will achieve any of the SDGs in the absence of water. We will simply perish, we will cease to exist. It's as simple, and as much as we like taking God gifts for granted, but it's all about survival. With that, together with the panel, we were quite confused. How do we structure this session? And we thought it's better to identify topics, clear topics that we can speak to. And this includes a wide broad of areas that are very pertinent and important to this sector. Let me first start, water and sanitation is not a service. It's much broader than that. Perhaps we all think that water and sanitation is the tap that we open at home and the water starts flowing, or the flush box that we flush and whatever in the toilet goes. It's far broader than that. It's about governance, it's about systems, it's about structures, it's about service providers. It's a massive industry. With that, I would like to ask His Excellency Dr. Hazem to perhaps share some of his wisdom on the sector governance functions, the water and sanitation sector governance functions. With that, Dr. Hazem, I turn the floor to you to share your wisdom. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Dr. Omar, and also I would like to thank His Excellency Dr. Khaldoon, who is not here, I think, for organizing this session. Well, water governance, simply whether your utility or sector is functioning or not. And governance, you have a poor governance, which things are not working very well. You have a good governance, where things are working together. At the end of the day, the recipients of the services who can tell whether there is a good governance or a poor governance. But whether it's poor or good, it's the set of political, economical, social, judicial, administrative systems, including laws and bylaws, that manage and regulate water resources for the provision of water services at all levels within the society. And sometimes you see that this sector, water sector, for example, in Jordan, has relatively good governance. But I have to tell you that the element of water that contribute to good governance usually is no more than 50%. So if there is a good or poor water governance, don't blame the water institutions, because there are non-water elements in the governance, which I can give you some examples. Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Planning, Ministry of Finance, NGOs and accountability, and other institutions. So those elements usually are out of the hands of the people working within the water sectors. You can only deal with the 50% that related to resource management, sustainability, human resources, financial resources. The rest is out of your hand. And for that, you need a bigger governance, which we call overall governance, which includes the other governmental institutions. And for that, you need a multidisciplinary integration of all institutions working together, which is not the case in most of our area. It's not the case. The dimension of the governance, which is political, social, economic, and environmental, have relations to good governance. When it comes to environment, it's sustainable use. when it comes to economic, it's the efficiency use of resources. When it comes to the social dimension, it's the equitable leveraging of resources and giving people the right services. But also, in order to make a good governance, you need to work on the various elements contributing to that, which is, for example, accountability, transparency, integration, enforcement of law, inclusiveness, etc. So within this concept, I can tell you that most of the water governance that we have, at least in the Arab world, I would say it's between poor and good. For the reasons I said. Of course, shifting toward the poor is driven by the scarcity of water resources, because then you have things out of your hand in terms of illegal uses of water, water losses because of pumping water over distance, and that contribute more into poor to good water governance within most of the Arab countries, as I can recall. I hope I elaborated on your question, Dr. Omar.
Thank you very much, Excellency Dr. Hazem. That said, then, in order to make this session more interesting, I'm going to kindly open the floor for a few questions before we move to the next topic. So, any takers? Any questions?
See, poor water governance, poor participation.
Please.
Or a good presentation.
Yeah. Please, kindly. Would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment.
Please go ahead. Please.
The mic, or should I just talk?
Your voice is very loud.
Don't bother and raise your voice.
Okay, will do. There are two things I just want to comment on. Definitely the issue of poor water resources and governance. I would say the poorer you are, the more it dictates that you have a better water governance. So there is no conflict whatsoever between the two concepts. Actually, water governance. Now, the other point that I wanted to stress is the distinction between water.
The other point that I wanted to stress is the distinction between water governance and water management. And in many cases, unfortunately, in many parts of the Arab region, and may I say in many other parts of the world, the two concepts are a little bit confused or not so clear. In many cases, while governance should deal with the overall policies, orientations, and definitely it is highly interlinked with the socio-economic status of the country, management is management. Its role is to translate these governance, shall I say, resolutions of governance or orientations of governance into action on the ground, and with all associated, shall I say, operational, managerial tasks. So this distinction between governance and management, I think, is a point that needs to be established if we are really talking about water governance in that sense. So these are the 2 points that sort of shared. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so very much for your wisdom. These are very valid and invaluable contributions. Thank you so very much. Other questions from the floor? I take silence means nothing, so just quickly, I would like to highlight a few of the points His Excellency, and of course, His Excellency, thank you so very much for the invaluable contribution. Governance, just for us to better understand, I'm just trying to summarize what Dr. Hazem had kindly mentioned. It's about policy, strategies, institutional arrangements, sector financing, planning, monitoring and review, and capacity strengthening of the sector. Dr. Hazem had kindly shared with us his wisdom that 50% of the service that we receive is governance. The rest is elsewhere. It sits elsewhere. And this strengthens the idea that water is a multi-sectorial, a multidisciplinary area of work that includes everybody's contribution. It does nest contribution from all sectors. His Excellency had highlighted that accountability, inclusiveness, equity, enforcing the laws, etc., are critical parts of the governance. And I also take this very important point that our governance in our region is between poor and good. So perhaps it's not what we think it is. And I take the very important point, and this is a very valuable remark. The more water is scarce, the better governance system you have, because failure is usually not an option. So that is how it works. So thank you so very much for that. We'll try to capture a different area of sustainability. With over 60% of our surface water resources coming from outside of the region, our dependency rate is extremely high in this region. We depend on our income for remittances sent by somebody into our region, which is a serious risk factor. Let aside groundwater, which the transboundary aquifers we don't know much about. Having said that, I would like to turn the floor to Her Excellency, Ms. Afilal, to shed her wisdom on environmental sustainability. To you, Ms. Afilal.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hattab, for the introduction. First of all, I would like to thank you, the Aqua, for the invitation. It's my pleasure to be with you in this panel to share some experiences, to share some knowledge about the sustainability. I think sustainable management of water is the core of any water policy management. Managing water with sustainability goes beyond fulfilling thirsty everyone. It's a key of stability and the peace in our region, especially for facing the high demand. What I'm going to share with you is about managing groundwater management. Groundwater management is a very, very complex problem. Why it's a very complex problem? Groundwater is the primary resources of fresh water in some parts of the world. For example, in Morocco, 90% from the rural area, they use groundwater. So the groundwater is a unique resource for, especially for the rural area. They contribute also for socio-economic development, including agriculture, including tourism, including also industry.